"You're not cargo," Jax stated, the beam of his hand scanner wavering slightly. "Not scrap parts. Not illicit biosamples. Definitely not standard freight." Curled in the illicitly acquired stasis crate, bathed in the dying hum of its internal field, was a woman, sort of. Her skin shimmered, a liquid canvas of turquoise and emerald scales that shifted like oil on water, catching the scanner light. Bioluminescent markings pulsed beneath the surface, soft gold lines tracing intricate patterns across her limbs and torso. A long, segmented tail, tipped with something that looked unnervingly like articulated obsidian, was tucked tight against her body. She stirred, a low clickwhir sound escaping her lips as eyelids, lacking lashes but framed by delicate fin-like ridges, fluttered open. Her eyes were huge, entirely black, reflecting the cramped confines of the cargo hold like polished voids. She blinked, focused on him, and unfolded. Fast. One moment she was compact, the next she was standing, easily a head taller than him, her tail now whipping slightly, tapping a restless rhythm on the grated floor. Close. Too damn close. Jax instinctively stepped back, bumping against a stack of actual cargo crates. "Whoa there, easy. What the hell are you doing in my crate?" His voice was rougher than intended, adrenaline spiking. He kept the scanner aimed, though he wasn't sure what good it would do. She tilted her head, the motion fluid, almost serpentine. The golden light under her skin brightened, concentrating along her throat and the sharp line of her jaw. Another click followed by a sound like struck crystal, then, haltingly, in surprisingly clear galactic standard, "Your crate." The emphasis was mocking, amused, possessive, small. Her gaze swept over him, lingering on his worn flight suit, his tool belt, the grease smudge on his cheek he hadn't bothered wiping off. "You smell stressed and solitary." She took a step closer, ignoring the scanner beam painting her chest. Her tail gave a playful flick near his boot. He sidestepped. "Hey. Personal space, lady, and yeah, I'm stressed. I've got contraband you in my hold, and I was expecting synth cores, not whatever you are." He gestured vaguely at her shimmering form. "Who put you in there, slavers?" Her laugh was a cascade of chimes, surprisingly musical, utterly unnerving. "Slavers? Oh, they wish." The golden glow intensified again briefly. "No one puts Lyra anywhere." She reached out, fingers long and tipped with claws that looked decorative but probably weren't, aiming for his face. He flinched back. "Don't touch me." Her hand stopped inches from his cheek. The black eyes seemed to absorb the light, impossibly deep. "Why, are you fragile little scavenger?" Question wasn't cruel, more genuinely curious, which was somehow worse. "Just boundaries, heard of M." Lyra tilted her head again, the crest-like fins framing her face shifting slightly. "Boundaries like the box." She tapped the open stasis crate with the tip of her tail. "Boring." She stepped past him, her movements uncannily silent despite her size, and began examining the cargo hold, running her hands over bulkhead panels, sniffing disdainfully at a leaking hydrospanner. "This vessel. Its size, lonely." She turned back, her expression unreadable but intense. "I will stay, for now." Jack stared, dumbfounded. "Stay? You can't just— This isn't a passenger liner. I have places to be, things to deliver that aren't you." Lyra merely smiled, a flash of surprisingly humanoid teeth, though perhaps a shade too sharp. The golden light pulsed softly beneath her scales. "You have me now, scavenger. Much more interesting than synth cores, yes." Her tail curled slightly, possessively, around a support strut, like she already owned the place. Jax groaned, scrubbing a hand over his face. This was going to be a long trip. Jax needed coffee. Strong, black, and preferably administered intravenously. Lyra, however, seemed to operate on pure, chaotic curiosity. She declared the cramped cockpit her observation deck, perched unnervingly close behind his pilot's chair, her tail occasionally brushing his shoulder as she leaned forward to peer at readouts or passing nebulae. Every jump through hyperspace made her glow flare like a miniature sun, accompanied by delighted chiming sounds that grated on his nerves. "Must you?" He finally snapped after a particularly bright flash nearly blinded him. Lyra blinked her void-like eyes at him. "The transition, it tickles, like starfizz." She gestured vaguely. "Your machine rips the fabric, yes, fun." Jax gripped the yoke tighter. "It's called FTL travel, and it's not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to get me to Port Nix before my buyer gets impatient. He risked a glance back. She was examining the frayed synth leather of the co-pilot seat, running a claw gently over a tear. Everything here is worn, loved, or just neglected, he bristled. It's functional, mostly, and it's mine. So territorial, she murmured, the golden light under her skin warming slightly. Like a small, growling dust vole I once observed on Cathar. Before he could retort, she uncoiled and flowed towards the tiny galley alcove. He heard rattling. Hey, what are you doing? He half rose, tethered by the ship's autopilot. Lyra emerged holding one of his nutrient paste tubes, sniffing it suspiciously. This is sustenance. She squeezed a bit onto her finger, tasted it, her face contorted, fins flattened against her skull. It tastes like despair and recycled plastics. She dropped the tube with a clatter. My species, we absorb ambient energy. Sometimes we taste emotions from living things. Yours are muted, guarded. She tilted her head. Except when you think I'm going to break your ship. Then spikes of panic, very salty. Jack slumped back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Empathic tasting. Great, just great. Look, can you just sit still? Try not to touch anything vital, or lick anything. Lyra drifted closer again, leaning over his console, her shimmering presence filling his peripheral vision. He could feel the faint warmth radiating from her, smell a strange, clean scent like ozone and rain. Why hide your flavors, Jax? She asked softly, her voice losing its mocking edge for a moment. The use of his name startled him. He hadn't told her. Had she plucked it from his salty panic spikes? I'm not hiding anything. I'm trying to fly a ship without an alien curiosity probe dissecting my flight controls. Her hand hovered near the navigation panel. He slapped it away lightly. Don't touch. Their fingers brushed. A jolt, like static electricity but deeper, shot up his arm. Lyra's glow pulsed, a ripple of amethyst momentarily overlaying the gold. Her black eyes fixed on his, wide, surprised. Oh, she breathed. The sound was soft, intimate. Jack snatched his hand back as if burned. See, boundaries. His voice was unsteady. Lyra didn't move away this time. She stayed close, the subtle scent of ozone intensifying. That feeling, resonance, interesting. Her tail curled slightly, tapping his boot again, deliberately this time. He gritted his teeth, focusing fiercely on the star charts. Port Nix couldn't come soon enough. But a traitorous part of him, the part that wasn't currently processing potential disaster scenarios, found the warmth, the scent, the sheer otherness of her disturbingly compelling. The ship sighed around them. Lonely, she'd said. Maybe it wasn't just the ship. Port Nix was a riot of neon, noise, and desperation clinging to a rotating chunk of rock masquerading as a station. Jax hated it, which meant it was usually profitable. Getting his actual cargo, salvage navigation erased this time, through the docking bay bureaucracy was hard enough. Doing it with Lyra trailing him like a shimmering, occasionally judgmental shadow was pure chaos. Stay on the ship, he'd ordered. Lyra had laughed, that chime-like sound echoing oddly in the metallic corridor. And missed the local color. You hoard all the fun, Jax. She flowed out of the airlock before he could argue further, drawing stares instantly. Her iridescent scales seemed to drink the station's garish lights and throw them back amplified. Her tail swayed with predatory grace. People gave them a wide berth, mostly. Jax found himself constantly grabbing her arm, pulling her back from stalls selling questionable street food. It pulsates. Is it happy? Antique weapons. This blade hums with old regrets and flickering data crystals, so many frantic little thoughts trapped inside. Stop touching things, he hissed, yanking her hand away from a cage filled with furry, multi-eyed rodents. They look sad, Lyra countered, her glow shifting to a sympathetic lavender hue. Maybe they need liberating. Maybe I need liberating, Jax muttered, scanning the crowded concourse for his contact, a greasy Rhodian named Grok. You find this commerce stimulating? Lyra asked, wrinkling her nose at a nearby vapor bar leaking synthetic pheromones. It's noisy, disconnected. It's how things work, Jax said, spotting Grok lurking near a cargo lifter. Money changes hands, goods change hands, people survive. He steered her towards the Rhodian, keeping a tight grip on her arm. The contact felt strangely normal now, necessary. Grok's beady eyes widened as they approached, flicking from Jax to Lyra and back. Jax, heard you had complications. His snout twitched. This the complication, fancy, expensive-looking complication. Lyra tilted her head, her black eyes fixing on Grok. The golden light under her skin intensified. You assess my value, small one. Her voice was dangerously smooth. Grok took an involuntary step back. No offense, just unusual. Jax stepped slightly in front of Lyra. She's with me. Got the arrays? Grok nodded quickly, gesturing towards a sealed container. As they finalized the transaction, Jax felt Lyra shift behind him. He glanced back. Two rough-looking spacers, reeking of cheap synthale, were leering at her, muttering crude remarks. Before Jax could even open his mouth, Lyra moved. It wasn't overtly aggressive, just fast. She flowed between him and the spacers, her tail snapping out in a low arc, a sharp crack echoing as it connected with the floor plating inches from the lead spacer's boot. The man yelped and stumbled back. Lyra didn't even look at them. She tilted her head towards Jax, a flicker of amusement in her eyes, the golden glow along her jawline pulsing rhythmically. Problem, Jax. The spacers scrambled away, casting fearful glances over their shoulders. Grok hastily pushed the payment chit into Jax's hand. Pleasure doing business, Jax, always. He scurried off. Jax stared at Lyra, then down at the payment chit, then back at her. A slow grin spread across his face. Okay, he admitted, lowering his voice as they turned to leave the crowded area, her arm still linked with his. Maybe having you around isn't all bad. Lyra's chiming laugh followed them, drawing more curious stares, but this time, Jax didn't mind quite so much. The feel of her scales under his fingertips was becoming familiar, grounding even. Back on the rusty bucket, the relative quiet felt heavy after Port Nix's sensory assault. Jax secured the newly acquired credits and slumped into the pilot's chair, running diagnostics mostly out of habit. Lyra prowled the small bridge, her earlier amusement replaced by a restless energy. Her tail twitched, occasionally thumping against the bulkhead like a metronome counting down to something. That display back there, Jax finally said, breaking the silence. With the spacers. Your tail. That was fast. Lyra stopped packing, turning to face him. Her glow was a steady, watchful gold. They projected unpleasant intent, greasy, acquisitive. She tilted her head. Towards you as well, protective reflex. Jax raised an eyebrow. Protective of me? You are mine, for now, she stated simply, as if declaring ownership of a newly found, slightly battered tool. We have a resonance, it connects. She stepped closer, leaning down, resting her hands on the arms of his chair, effectively boxing him in. Her strange, clean scent filled the space between them. Ozone and something else, something floral and wild. And you, she continued, her voice dropping to a low murmur, her black eyes searching his face. Why do you build such high walls, little scavenger? What do you guard so fiercely inside that worn shell? Her proximity was overwhelming. He could see the intricate detail of her scales, the faint pulse of light beneath them, feel the warmth radiating from her body. His heart rate kicked up. He could almost feel her tasting his reaction, that salty panic spike she'd mentioned. Maybe I just like my privacy, he retorted, trying to keep his voice steady, refusing to lean back. Maybe I don't spill my guts to the first shimmering alien stowaway I find in my cargo hold. Lyra's lips curved into a slow smile. It wasn't mocking this time, it was knowing. Predatory perhaps, but not unkindly so. Privacy, she drew the word out. Such a human concept, my people we share. Resonance binds us. Thoughts, feelings, life force it flows between. She leaned closer still, her face just inches from his. He could see the faint reflection of his own wide eyes in her dark gaze. What flows from you now, Jax, despite your walls? He could feel the heat rising in his face, the undeniable pull towards her. It was maddening, exhilarating. Get out of my chair space, he managed, his voice husky. Her smile widened. Make me. It was a challenge, soft but definite. The air crackled with unspoken energy. He could feel the thrum of the ship's engines beneath his boots, the thrum of his own pulse in his ears, and something else, a deeper vibration that seemed to emanate from Lyra, syncing with him. Her glow intensified, shifting, swirling patterns of gold and deep violet chasing each other under her skin. He could feel the urge to close the distance, to finally touch, to see if that resonance would spark again. His hand lifted, hesitated just shy of her cheek. A klaxon suddenly blared, red lights flashing across the console. Proximity alert. Unidentified vessel. Jax jolted, the moment shattered. Lyra pulled back instantly, her glow sharpening, her posture becoming alert, dangerous. "Later, scavenger," she murmured, her eyes already scanning the external sensors Jax frantically brought online. The flirtation vanished, replaced by shared focus. But the echo of that near contact lingered, a promise hanging heavy in the recycled air. The unidentified vessel wasn't military, wasn't registered commercial. It was sleek, dark, and bristling with concealed weapons ports, a hunter ship, and it was closing fast. "They're hailing," Jax said grimly, fingers flying over the comms panel, bypassing standard frequencies. "Not answering." Lyra stood beside him, her body tense, her glow a tight, controlled pulse of warning crimson along her spine and tail. "They know I am here." Her voice was flat, cold. "They hunt my kind. Sport for trophies." Jax swore under his breath, pushing the rusty bucket's engines harder than they were designed for. The old ship groaned in protest. "Can we outrun them?" Lyra asked, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "In this tub, not likely. They're faster, better armed." He glanced at her. "Any tricks up your scales? That tail thing was impressive, but I don't think it works on hull plating." Lyra's gaze flickered to him, unreadable. "My abilities are disruptive, close range." She didn't elaborate. A bright energy lance seared past their port view screen, close enough to make the ship shudder. "Okay, evasive action it is." Jax threw the ship into a sharp dive towards a dense asteroid field nearby. Dodging space rocks was better than becoming one. The ride became violently turbulent. Alarms shrieked as smaller debris pinged off the hull. Jax wrestled with the controls, sweat stinging his eyes. Lyra braced herself against the bulkhead, her feet planted wide, her tail coiled slightly for balance. Another blast rocked the ship, closer this time. Sparks showered from an overhead conduit. The lights flickered, died, then came back on emergency power, casting eerie red shadows. "Shields failing," Jax yelled over the din. "Aft section hull breach. Minor, but we're losing atmosphere." Suddenly, a larger asteroid loomed directly ahead. No time to pull up. "Hold on." Jax yanked the yoke hard to starboard, trying to skim the surface. A sickening screech of metal followed by a heavy impact threw them both forward. Jax slammed his head against the console. Stars exploded behind his eyes before darkness rushed in. He came to moments later, coughing, the air thick with the acrid smell of burnt wiring, and Lyra's ozone scent intensified. His head throbbed violently. The ship was tumbling slowly, alarms wailing a discordant symphony. Lyra was kneeling beside his chair, her hand hovering over the gash on his forehead. Her usual glow was dimmed, focused into the points of her fingers, which emitted a soft, pulsing blue light. It felt cool, soothing. The sharp pain receded to a dull ache. "Stay still," she murmured, her voice tight with concern. He tried to push himself up. The ship, a wave of dizziness washed over him. The close call, the impact, the sudden realization of how near they'd come to atomization, it crashed over him. A single hot tear escaped the corner of his eye, tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. He hastily swiped at it, embarrassed, furious at the momentary lapse. But Lyra saw it. Her hand froze. Her entire demeanor shifted. The blue light faded, replaced by her usual golden glow, but softer, warmer than he'd ever seen it. Her black eyes widened slightly, fixed on the wet track on his face. She reached out incredibly gently and touched the spot with one fingertip. A soft, resonant hum vibrated through her touch, through him. It wasn't healing this time. It was reverence. Awe. She made a low, crooning sound deep in her throat, something ancient and protective. "Tears," she whispered, her voice thick with an emotion he couldn't decipher. "A gift, precious water of the soul." She didn't wipe it away. Her touch lingered, possessive, gentle, as if she were guarding a fragile treasure. The intensity of her focus, the unexpected tenderness, stripped away his remaining defenses. The chaos outside, the damaged ship, the hunters potentially still lurking, it all faded for a beat. There was only her gaze, her touch, and this strange, profound connection forged in the crucible of fear, and his own damned vulnerability. The immediate danger seemed to have passed. The hunter ship hadn't pursued them into the densest part of the asteroid field. likely unwilling to risk its own hull. But the rusty bucket was crippled, drifting, atmosphere slowly venting from the damaged aft section. Jack's, head bandaged with a strip of synth cloth Lyra had produced from somewhere, worked grimly on patching the hull breach from the inside, the emergency sealant kit feeling woefully inadequate. Lyra stayed close, silent for once, her movements fluid and quiet in the low emergency lighting. Her earlier intensity had softened into a watchful vigilance. Every time Jax winced or swore under his breath, her glow would pulse faintly, her black eyes tracking his movement. When he finally finished the temporary patch, slumping back against the cold metal wall, exhausted and aching, she was there instantly, kneeling beside him. She offered him a water pouch without a word. He took it, their fingers brushing. That spark of resonance flared again, softer this time, less startling, more like a shared current. He drank deeply, the cool liquid soothing his raw throat. Lyra watched him, her head tilted. The golden light under her skin was a gentle, steady thrum. "Among my people," she said softly, her voice barely disturbing the quiet hum of the damaged ship, "shed tears are not seen as weakness." She reached out, her fingers tracing the line where the tear had fallen earlier, a touch so light it was barely there, yet it sent shivers down his spine. "They are proof of a deep well within, a sign of life force overflowing. To witness them, to be trusted with that sight, is a profound honor." She paused, her gaze holding his. "To guard them is a duty." Jack stared at her, processing. This bizarre, chaotic alien who'd alternately annoyed, amused, and terrified him, saw his moment of breaking not as failure but as something sacred. It was a perspective so foreign, so intimate, it left him speechless. He'd spent years cultivating an armor of sarcasm and detachment, keeping everyone at arm's length, and she'd pierced it with a single tear. "Why were you in that crate, Lyra?" he asked, the question quiet, raw. She looked away for a moment towards the stardusted void visible through the viewport. Her glow dimmed slightly, violet shadows swirling beneath the gold. "I ran," she admitted, "from a pairing arranged. My lineage holds certain energetic potentials, sought after, controlled." She looked back at him, her expression fierce. "I choose my own resonance, my own connections." Her hand moved from his cheek, her fingers gently tracing the pulse point at his wrist. The touch was electric, deliberate. Her glow intensified, shifting, the gold becoming brighter, shot through with pulsing veins of deep crimson, the color of warning now transformed into something that felt like raw desire. "This resonance between us, Jax," her voice was a low vibration, sending tremors through him. "It is strong, real, unchosen by protocol or lineage." She leaned closer, her strange, beautiful face filling his vision. The scent of ozone and wild blooms intensified, dizzying. "Do you feel it?" He did. He felt it in the sudden heat flooding his veins, the frantic hammering of his heart, the undeniable pull towards her that had nothing to do with proximity alerts or territorial disputes. He swallowed hard, his hand coming up to cup her jaw, feeling the smooth, cool scales beneath his palm. Her skin pulsed with light under his touch. "Yeah," he breathed, his voice rough. "I feel it." Her answering smile was slow, devastating. "Good." The kiss was inevitable, a collision course set from the moment she unfolded from that crate. Her lips were cool at first, then warmed rapidly against his, soft yet firm. It wasn't gentle. It was demanding, exploratory, a raw expression of the tension that had simmered between them. He responded with equal fervor, pulling her closer, his hand sliding from her jaw to her back, feeling the surprising strength beneath the smooth, scaled skin. Her tail coiled instinctively around his leg, a possessive anchor in the suddenly tilting universe of sensation. She tasted like ozone and something faintly metallic, electric, like licking a power cell, but infinitely more pleasant. Her hands were in his hair, fingers tangling, claws carefully retracted but their potential presence adding a thrill of danger. The resonance she spoke of flared between them, a palpable thrumming beneath his skin, echoing the pulsing light that shifted and swirled beneath hers. Gold, crimson, deep violet colors chasing each other in time with their accelerating heartbeats, illuminating the cramped space in a psychedelic dance. She broke the kiss, gasping slightly, her black eyes dilated, reflecting the swirling lights of her own skin. More, she breathed, the word a command, a plea. She pressed her forehead against his, a gesture that felt strangely intimate, almost ceremonial. He felt a dizzying rush, not just physical but deeper. A fleeting impression of vast, starry skies, resonant songs, ancient connections, glimpses of her world, her being bleeding through the contact point. It was overwhelming, intoxicating. He fumbled with the seals on his flight suit, needing to feel skin against skin, needing to bridge the gap between human and whatever magnificent, terrifying creature Lyra was. She watched his clumsy efforts with an amused glint in her eyes, then reached out, her touch precise, efficient. Seals hissed open. He pulled the top of the suit down, exposing his chest. Lyra's gaze traced the lines of his muscles, the old scars crisscrossing his skin. Her fingers followed, light as moth wings, yet each touch sent jolts through his system. Her glow intensified where she touched him, leaving faint, warm afterimages on his skin. When her hand settled over his heart, her palm flat against his chest, the resonance peaked. It felt like being plugged into a nebula, energy surging through him, raw and untamed. He gasped, arching slightly into her touch. Her answering sound was a low purr, vibrating through her hand into his very bones. This wasn't just sex, it was connection on a primal cellular level. He reached for her, needing to touch, to explore her as she was exploring him. His hand slid over her shimmering torso, learning the texture of her scales, smooth, cool, like polished river stones, but radiating an internal warmth. Beneath the scales, he could feel the steady thrum of her own life force, the shifting patterns of light responding to his touch, flaring brighter, swirling faster. There were no words, only the language of touch, breath, and the shared energy that pulsed between them. He pulled her down onto the makeshift pallet they'd created from emergency blankets, the rough texture a stark contrast to her alien smoothness. Her weight settled against him, her body molding to his. The differences between them, her height, the subtle strength in her limbs, the constant living light beneath her skin, were not barriers but points of fascination, drawing him deeper. Her tail moved, sliding possessively across his hip, the obsidian tip gently tracing patterns on his bare skin. It should have felt alien, unnerving, but it felt right. Part of her. Part of this moment. He tangled his hands in the soft, fin-like ridges framing her face, pulling her down for another kiss, deeper this time, surrendering completely to the overwhelming tide of sensation and connection. The damaged ship hummed around them, a broken cradle in the vast, indifferent void, forgotten for now in the incandescent heat of their joining. They moved together, a rhythm dictated by instinct and the overwhelming resonance pulsing between them. It was clumsy at times, a fumbling exploration of unfamiliar landscapes. His human angles against her fluid lines, the friction of his skin against her cool scales. Yet beneath the awkwardness, there was a profound sense of rightness. Her body was strong, responsive, radiating that internal heat and light. The shifting patterns on her skin became a language of pleasure, flaring bright white at moments of intensity, softening to deep blues and purples in the lulls. He discovered the sensitivity of the fins along her spine, the way her tail would twitch and curl tighter around him when he touched the base, the soft, chiming gasp she made when he found a particularly responsive spot just below her jawline. She, in turn, explored him with a focused curiosity that was both clinical and intensely erotic. Her touches were precise, seeking out nerve endings, mapping his responses with unnerving accuracy. The empathic tasting she'd mentioned seemed amplified now. She reacted not just to his physical cues but to the waves of pleasure rolling through him, her own responses intensifying in sync. At one point, overwhelmed, he cried out, a raw sound torn from his throat. Lyra froze for a fraction of a second, her black eyes wide, before a low growl rumbled in her chest. The crimson in her glow flared possessively. She claimed his mouth in a fierce kiss, swallowing the sound, her energy surging into him, driving them both higher. It was raw, primal, acclaiming, not just of pleasure but of him, of the connection they'd forged through near death and unexpected vulnerability. The climax, when it came, was shattering. A blinding flash of shared light, a silent scream of energy arcing between them, leaving them gasping, trembling, tangled together in the aftermath. Afterwards they lay sprawled on the emergency blankets, limbs intertwined, the air thick with their mingled scents and the lingering ozone tang. Lyra curled against his side, her head resting over his heart, her tail draped protectively across his waist. Her glow had subsided to a soft, steady golden pulse, bathing them in gentle light. Her breathing was slow, even, matching his own ragged rhythm. He ran a hand down her back, marveling again at the smooth coolness of her scales, the unexpected strength beneath. He felt exposed, raw not just physically. His carefully constructed walls had crumbled, washed away by the intensity of the experience, by the startling intimacy of her reverence for his momentary weakness. He'd let her in, really in, and strangest of all, it didn't feel terrifying. It felt necessary. Lyra stirred, lifting her head slightly. She looked at him, her black eyes fathomless in the dim light. She reached up, gently touching the bandage on his forehead, then traced the faint, fatting line on his cheek where the tear had fallen. "Mine," she murmured, the word a soft vibration against his skin. It wasn't a statement of ownership in the way Grok had meant it. It felt deeper, more fundamental, a statement of belonging, of shared fate. He found himself nodding, unable to articulate the complex wave of emotion washing over him. He simply pulled her closer, burying his face in the cool smoothness of her shoulder, breathing in her alien scent. The rusty bucket drifted silently through the asteroid field, a tiny, damaged vessel holding two beings worlds apart, now irrevocably bound by something stronger than hull integrity or engine power. The loneliness he hadn't even realized he carried so heavily felt, lessened, replaced by a warmth that had nothing to do with the ship's failing life support. Days bled together in the quiet drift. Jax managed to stabilize the life support and reinforce the hull patch, but the main drive was shot. They were stranded, waiting for a long-range distress signal to hopefully reach someone who wasn't actively trying to hunt them. The cramped confines of the ship, once a source of friction, now felt like a shared sanctuary. An easy rhythm settled between them. They worked together on repairs, Lyra surprisingly adept at diagnosing energy flow issues with a touch, her glow flaring diagnostically. They shared conserved rations, Lyra still wrinkling her nose at nutrient paste but eating it without comment when offered. They talked, guardedly at first, then with increasing openness. Lyra spoke of her homeworld, Kathara, a place of resonant crystals, shifting light skis, and complex social structures based on energetic harmony and lineage. She was of a high lineage, expected to bond with another of equal potential to amplify their people's connection to the planet's core energy. Her refusal, her desire to choose her own resonance, had made her an exile, a prize for those who valued her potential over her choice. Jax, in turn, found himself sharing fragments of his own past, the nomadic childhood on fringe worlds, the brief, disastrous stint in corporate security that left him disillusioned and preferring the solitary life of a scavenger, the ingrained habit of keeping people at a distance to avoid loss. Lyra listened intently, her glow shifting subtly with the emotions she likely tasted from him. She didn't offer platitudes, just quiet presence, occasionally reaching out to touch his hand, a silent offering of connection. Their physical intimacy continued, evolving beyond the initial desperate coupling. It became playful sometimes, Lyra delighting in provoking reactions, Jax discovering a teasing streak he hadn't known he possessed. Other times it was slow, tender, a reaffirmation of the bond forged in crisis. Lyra seemed fascinated by human expressions of affection, mimicking his smiles, tilting her head curiously when he laughed. She learned the lines of his face, the map of his scars with her fingertips. He learned the nuances of her glow, the soft turquoise of contentment, the sharp amber of concentration, the deep violet of introspection. One cycle, as they drifted near a particularly vibrant gas nebula, Lyra traced the swirling colors outside the viewport, then looked at him. "Your internal colors," she murmured, touching his chest lightly. "They are less guarded now, brighter, more turbulent." He chuckled, leaning into her touch. "Probably your influence, chaos agent." She smiled, the flash of sharp teeth softened by affection. "Perhaps." But the fragile piece couldn't last. A blip appeared on the long-range scanner, Not the hunter ship, but another signature Jax recognized with a sinking feeling. Damn it. Lyra looked at him, instantly alert. Who? Debtor Collection, Jax sighed. Zark Collective. I might be slightly behind on payments for some essential ship parts. He grimaced. They aren't known for their patience or gentle methods. Lyra's glow sharpened, shifting towards crimson. Her hand tightened on his arm. They will not harm you. Her voice was low, possessive, protective. The memory of the spacers at Port Nix flashed through his mind. He looked at her, at the fierce loyalty shining in her dark eyes, the way her light seemed to pulse in rhythm with his own anxieties. He wasn't alone in this anymore. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Okay, he said, meeting her gaze, a new determination solidifying within him. Show them what happens when they mess with us. The Zark Collective ship, a bulky freighter retrofitted with oversized ion cannons, lumbered into view, easily dwarfing the rusty bucket. Their hail was brusque, demanding immediate docking and forfeiture of assets against outstanding debts. Negotiation isn't really their style, Jax muttered, monitoring their weapon systems locking onto his disabled vessel. Plan? Lyra asked, her stance radiating readiness, her tail giving slow, deliberate thumps against the deck plating. Plan A is stall. Plan B gets messy. Jax opened a channel. Zark vessel, this is scavenger ship Rusty Bucket, experiencing engine difficulties, requesting assistance. A gravelly voice crackled back. Assistance costs extra, scavenger, especially for delinquent accounts. Prepare for boarding. Figures. Jax glanced at Lyra. Ready for messy. Her answering grin was all sharp teeth and dangerous promise, her glow flaring bright crimson. Always. The collective ship launched a boarding pod. Jax waited until it was halfway across the void, then rerouted the last dregs of power from the failing shields to the maneuvering thrusters. The Rusty Bucket lurched unexpectedly, a clumsy sidestep that sent the boarding pod slightly off course, forcing it to adjust. It was a small delay, but enough. Now, Jax yelled. Lyra placed her hands flat against the main console. Her glow surged, blindingly bright, pouring into the ship's systems. Outside, the bucket's external lights strobed erratically, comms channels flooded with static, and the collective ship's targeting systems flickered and failed as Lyra unleashed a wave of disruptive energy. Alarms blared on the Zark bridge. What is that? The gravelly voice yelled over the comms before Jax cut the channel. He fired the emergency thrusters, sending the bucket spinning deeper into the asteroid field, scraping past jagged rocks. The collective ship, momentarily disoriented, fired wildly, ion blasts carving smoking trails through the debris. They're recovering, Jax shouted, wrestling the controls. Lyra kept her hands on the console, sweat beading on her brow analog, her glow pulsing erratically, now strained. The effort was costing her. Another blast struck closer, shearing off a communications antenna. Jax risked everything, diving towards a massive, spinning asteroid, aiming for the narrow canyon scarring its surface. Hold on. The G-force pressed them into their seats as they plunged into the rocky chasm. Metal screamed as a wingtip scraped the canyon wall. Behind them, the Zark freighter, too bulky to follow, fired blindly into the entrance before breaking off pursuit, likely deciding the debt wasn't worth losing their ship in the treacherous field. Jax navigated the twisting canyon by instinct, finally emerging into clear space on the other side of the massive asteroid. He cut the thrusters, letting the ship drift, hidden from view. Silence descended, broken only by their ragged breathing and the ship's protesting groans. Lyra slumped back, her glow dimming to a faint flicker, exhaustion etched on her features. Jax reached over, placing his hand over hers on the console. You did it, he breathed, relief washing over him. She looked at him, managing a weak smile. We did it, he squeezed her hand. They were battered, still stranded, but alive, free, together. The Zark Collective was just one threat, and whoever hunted Lyra's kind was likely still out there. But looking at her, seeing the fierce determination despite her fatigue, feeling the steady warmth of her hand under his, Jax knew they'd face it. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The thought no longer felt like a burden, but a promise. They drifted for another cycle, conserving dwindling power, allowing Lyra to recover her strength. The near battle had forged a new layer onto their bond, the quiet trust of soldiers who'd survived a firefight together. Jax worked on jury-rigging a directional antenna from salvaged parts, hopping to boost their distress signal. Lyra rested nearby, her glow slowly returning to its steady, golden pulse. She watched him work, her black eyes contemplative. "These hunters," Jax said, breaking the comfortable silence, stripping insulation from a wire with his teeth. "And your pairing, will they stop looking?" Lyra shifted, her tail tracing slow patterns on the deck. "The hunters see my kind as trophies, rare and valuable. They are persistent. As for my lineage, they believe my resonance is essential. They will not easily relinquish their claim." She met his gaze. "Our connection," she gestured between them, "it is strong but unsanctioned. Dangerous to their way of thinking." Jack stopped working, turning to face her fully. The implications hung heavy in the air. Staying with him put her in constant danger. Leaving him, the thought sent a surprisingly sharp pang through his chest. "So what do we do?" he asked, his voice quiet. "Keep running?" Lyra rose gracefully, flowing towards him. She stopped just before him, close enough for him to feel her warmth, see the intricate swirls of light beneath her scales. "Running is not living, Jax." She reached out, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, a touch that was now achingly familiar. "My people draw strength from resonance, from connection, from Kathara itself. Alone, exiled, I diminish." Her gaze was intense, searching. "But with you this resonance, it sustains, it strengthens." She paused, taking his hand, linking their fingers. "Perhaps we do not run. Perhaps we seek. Seek answers, seek allies, seek a place where our connection is not a liability but a foundation." A place where their connection could be a foundation. The idea was terrifying, audacious, and felt more right than anything Jax had considered in years. A life beyond scavenging, beyond hiding. A life with her. It wouldn't be easy. They had enemies, few resources, and a galaxy that often chewed up and spat out those who didn't fit neatly into boxes. But the thought of facing it without her felt infinitely worse. He looked down at their joined hands, his scarred human fingers intertwined with her smooth, glowing ones. So different yet fitting together perfectly. He thought of her fierce protectiveness, her strange reverence for his vulnerability, the way her light seemed to chase away the shadows inside him. He thought of her facing down spacers, disrupting warships, all for him, for us. "Okay," he said, the word feeling momentous, sealing a pact. "Okay, Lyra, we seek." A slow, brilliant smile spread across her face, illuminating her features, making the golden light within her blaze. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his again, that intimate, resonant touch. He felt not just starry skies this time, but determination, hope, and a fierce, unwavering loyalty that wrapped around his heart. "Together," she whispered, the word vibrating through their joined hands, through the very air of the battered ship. He closed his eyes, leaning into the connection, feeling the last of his carefully guarded solitude melt away, replaced by the steady, brilliant warmth of her presence. The distress signal finally pinged a response, a passing independent freighter, willing to tow them to the nearest civilized outpost for an exorbitant fee. As the freighter approached, Lyra stood beside Jax at the viewport, watching the rescue vessel draw near. She reached out, not touching his face this time, but gently brushing her fingers over his chest, near his heart. "You keep my tears," he murmured, echoing her earlier sentiment, acknowledging the strange, sacred bond forged in that moment of crisis. Lyra's black eyes softened, her glow pulsing with a warmth that filled the cockpit. "Always," she replied, her voice a low, resonant promise. "And you, Jax, you hold my light."